Okay, so in my last video I talked about what a standard position angle is, what it looks like. We talked about how this is 0, this is 90, this is 180, this is 270, and all the way around is 360 degrees. Okay, then we talked about going backwards in reverse and how this is 0, this is negative 90, this is negative 180, this is negative 270, this is negative 360. And we talked about going around and around and around and how we could do that for multiple things. Okay, so I'm going to erase those. Today we're going to talk about coterminal angles. And coterminal angles talks about angles that are basically the same. So I have the angles consisting of three things: the initial side, the terminal side, and the vertex. The initial side is in red. It's that side that touches that x-axis. The terminal side is the part that it ends on, and then the vertex is that middle piece. Popular names of angles are alpha, beta, theta, because it used to be Greek. So I usually write that as like a little fish, a B with a really long thing, and then a 0 with a line through it. Okay, sometimes when I get really sloppy, it looks like that. Okay, or ABC using capital letters. We can draw angles that are positive or negative. Okay, so if this is 0, 90, 180, 270, 360, so on and so forth, to get to 42, it's about halfway. And then I would draw that line right there, the little angle marker, and put a 42 in there. So then it asked me to draw negative 200, and we talked about in the last video that that's going backwards. And so I know that it's not in this place where it's like negative 90. I know that it's not in this place where it's negative 180. I know that it's in between here. Notice that between 180 and 200, there is this amount of 20. And we'll start to talk about that later. That'll be a reference angle. So we always start at the x-axis and move counterclockwise if it's positive, and we always start at the x-axis and move clockwise if it's negative. So I need to go through and I need to sketch 400. So if I go around to sketch 400 degrees, I'm going to go all the way around to 360, and then I need 40 more. So you can see that I added 40 more there. So then it says, can you think of another way to name this? And the first one, the easiest way to name this, is using the 40. We could also go backwards, and that would be the case of 360 minus 40, which is 320, except it has to be negative. Okay, so this is all about adding or subtracting 360 to make things happen. So notice that 400 minus 360 is 40. Notice that 40 minus 360 makes the negative 320. I could also go the other way, and I could say 400 plus 360 makes 760. And that's if I went around one more time. The word for these angles is called coterminal. It becomes important because we start using a whole bunch of names. So standard angles is what you already drew. It's that 400. Reference angles I've talked about a little bit, and it's going to have something to do with touching the x-axis and the movement there. And then coterminal is what we're working on today, and that's what are angles that look the same. So on your paper, this starts out looking like this. And we have angle A, or angle alpha. And if I told you that alpha was 45 degrees, you would then be able to tell me that this angle would be 45 degrees plus 360 degrees, which makes the 405. Then they ask you to draw the negative version of this angle. And the negative version looks like starting at that x-axis and going backwards. We know it's not negative 90 because it skips that. We know it's not negative 180 because it skips that. We know it's not negative 270 because it skips that. And we know it doesn't quite hit negative 360. The way we find this out, what it is exactly, is we take the 360 and we subtract the 45. The proper way is really to take the 45 and subtract the 360. When I do that, I get that angle right there. It's your choice. You can Common Core it, think about it like this, and add the negative sign, or you could do the actual math in the way that it's supposed to be done. So, we need to know, how do I draw 135? And I know it's not here because that's 90. And I know it's not all the way there because that's 180. So it's somewhere in between. And I really like for you to do this math of 180 minus 135 equals 5, 4. That puts it right in the middle, smack dab. So what's another name for that 135? Well, I could go backwards. So that's like 360 minus 135, knowing that it's negative. Five, 2, 2. I could go all the way around. So that's like the 135 plus the 360. Gives me 495. Okay. So it says using a formula. So my formula would be 135 plus 360 equals 495. My formula for the pink angle would be 135 minus 360 equals negative 225. Okay. At this point, I'm going to show a trick because there's some of you who are ready for it. Okay. Some of you are not, but some of you are ready for it. So when we originally drew this, we did this math right there to tell me that it's 45 between this angle and that angle. So what I want you to notice is that if I went negative, I know it's not negative 90. I know it's not negative 180. I know it's negative 180 and 45 more. That gets me to that 225. In my head, I do 180 plus 45, and I make it negative. Your choice. So let's do 390. 390 lands all the way around once. That's 360 plus 30 more. For me, I don't use a formula to get that extra piece because I see that 30 more already. But using the formula, it's 390 minus 360 equals 30. So then I have to do it the other direction. 390 plus 360 equals 750. At this point, this is the end of coterminal angles. And what I'd like for you to do is I'd like you to go practice on Delta Math, those coterminal angles, and then come back and finish up the rest of this video. We have review of complementary and supplementary angles. Complementary angles add up to 90 degrees because it is always right to give a complement. You can never go wrong. Okay? Supplementary angles add up to 180. They make that line. Okay? So 90 minus 72 is going to give you your complement. 18 degrees. A lot of teachers will mark you wrong if you don't have that degree sign there. Please make sure you have that. Supplementary angles, I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to use 180 to start with. Minus 72 gives me 108. So you're going to just continue to do 90 minus, 180 minus, all the way down. Okay. Then I need to talk about these. So we need to talk about what quadrant is it in and what does the standard position look like. So I talked about standard position last week. I talked about how as we go around, this is 0, 90, 180, 270, 360. But that would not be the right use of that in this case because you want to go backwards to make them negative. 90, 180, 270. Okay. So, as I go backwards, this one does not fully hit the negative 90 degrees. It's going to land right here in this quadrant, and it'll be right about there. So we practiced drawing that last week, but we didn't talk about what quadrants they were in. So you need to notice that the quadrants are labeled from that far right one all the way over as 1, 2, 3, 4. So this one lands in quadrant 4. That one lands in quadrant 2. I have full faith you can match them together. And then you'll finish up the rest of this and turn this in with a photo of all of these pages And don't forget to do the delta math that goes with the coterminal.